So let's start. Number 10, the Screaming Mummy. In the late 1800s, archaeologists unsealed an ancient Egyptian tomb and found something that immediately unsettled everyone present. The body inside had its mouth open in a striking and unusual way. Not slightly parted, but noticeably open. The expression looked less like a carefully preserved mummy and more like someone captured in an intense final moment. Most Egyptian mummies do not appear like that. The mummification process was usually deliberate and careful. Priests often secured the jaw so the face would appear calm and composed. Egyptians believed the body's dignity mattered after death, and a peaceful appearance could help guide the soul into the afterlife. This mummy seems to have received different treatment. The face appeared tense. The limbs seemed positioned in a way that some researchers found unusual. The burial materials were also unexpected. Instead of fine linen, the body had been wrapped in sheepskin, a material considered ritually impure in ancient Egypt. High-status individuals were not typically buried in this manner. Historians later connected the remains to a recorded royal conspiracy. Ancient texts describe a plot against Pharaoh Rameses III, Prince Pentawere, a royal son believed to have supported the plan. The conspiracy failed, and historical records suggest he was severely punished. Some researchers believe the so-called Screaming Mummy may be Pentawere, buried without royal honor. If that theory is correct, the unusual expression on the face may have remained preserved for more than 3,000 years, offering a haunting glimpse into a dramatic moment from ancient history. Number 9, the Vampire Child of Lugnano. In 2018, archaeologists excavating a 5th century Roman cemetery in central Italy uncovered a child's grave that stood apart from everything else at the site. The skeleton belonged to a child around 10 years old. Placed directly inside the open mouth of the skull was a large stone. It had been pushed deliberately between the teeth. Nothing about it suggested accident. The cemetery dated to a period when a severe malaria outbreak had swept through the region. Many of the graves belonged to children at the time. Disease was not understood through biology. It was understood through fear. Communities believed that some of the dead could return and continue spreading whatever had killed them. Burial rituals existed specifically to prevent this. Bodies were pinned beneath heavy stones. Limbs were weighted. In certain cases, objects were forced into the mouth to stop the corpse from biting the living. The child buried with the stone may have shown symptoms severe enough that the community feared what it might do after death. Modern analysis of the bones confirmed signs of malaria infection. Researchers who excavated the site described the find carefully, noting that what looks like a disturbing ritual today was most likely a community response to something they could not explain and could not afford to ignore. The stone in the mouth was not cruelty, it was panic made physical. Number 8, the bog bodies. In the peatlands of northern Europe, archaeologists have been pulling bodies from the ground for centuries. These are not skeletons, they are preserved remains with skin still intact, hair still present, faces still readable. The acidic, oxygen-depleted environment of the bog slows decomposition almost entirely, and the result is something deeply unsettling to encounter. Tallenmann, discovered in Denmark in 1950, is among the most well-known examples. Workers cutting peat initially believed they had found a recent murder victim. His face was peaceful, the skin was intact, a rope was wound tightly around his neck. Police were called. Scientists quickly determined the body was approximately 2,400 years old. His last meal was analyzed from the contents of his stomach. Grains and seeds, likely eaten within hours of death. The rope around his neck was not the only unusual detail. Many bog bodies across northern Europe show signs of ritualized killing. Strangulation, stabbing, careful placement in the water afterward. Researchers believe many of these individuals were sacrificial offerings. Bogs held spiritual significance for ancient communities in the region. They were liminal spaces, neither land nor water, associated with boundaries between the living world and whatever was believed to exist beyond it. The people preserved inside them may have been placed there deliberately, sent across that boundary with intention. What remains strange is how recent they look. 2,000 years of preservation, and the faces still carry expressions that feel immediate. Number 7. The Aztec Skull Wall. When Spanish explorers arrived in Tenochtitlan in the early 16th century, they wrote accounts of enormous ceremonial skull racks where the heads of sacrificial victims were displayed publicly. For centuries, historians treated those descriptions with skepticism. The accounts were assumed to be exaggerated, written to justify conquest, or shaped by cultural misunderstanding. In 2015, archaeologists excavating near the center of modern Mexico City uncovered physical evidence that changed that assessment. Beneath the streets, attached to the ruins of the Great Temple complex, was a massive circular tower constructed from human skulls mortared together in stone. Hundreds of skulls were embedded in its surface, arranged tightly and uniformly, each one facing outward. Some skulls still had holes drilled through their sides used to mount them on wooden poles before the tower was constructed. When researchers analyzed the remains more closely, they found something that complicated the historical narrative. Many of the skulls did not belong to enemy warriors. Women were represented. Children were represented. The sacrificial system was broader than anyone had assumed from written records alone. For the Aztecs, these rituals maintained cosmic balance. Human offerings fed the gods and sustained the cycle of existence. That framework does not make the structure easier to look at. Rows of empty eye sockets, stacked in stone, staring outward across a plaza that once held the center of an empire. The tower was not a secret, it was architecture, built to be seen. Number 6, the Frozen Girl of the Andes. In 1999, a team of archaeologists climbed to the summit of Luglanaco, a volcano in northwestern Argentina, rising to nearly 6,700 meters. Near the top, beneath the ice, they found 3 children buried together. The cold and dry conditions at that altitude had preserved the bodies with extraordinary completeness. Skin, hair, clothing, all of it intact. The oldest of the 3, now referred to as the Luglanaco maiden, appeared to be around 15 years old. She was seated with her legs folded beneath her head tilted slightly forward, her long braided hair draped over her shoulder. She was part of a ritual known as Cahokia, practiced by the Inca Empire. Children considered exceptionally pure were selected for the ceremony. They were honored publicly, carried through villages, given ceremonial clothing and food. Priests prepared them over months. Scientific analysis of the maiden's hair revealed traces of coca leaves and chicha, and alcohol made from maize consumed in increasing quantities in the period leading up to her death. The evidence suggests she was gradually sedated as part of the preparation. She was then taken to the summit and left to die from exposure and cold. 500 years later, she looks almost undisturbed. The expression on her face is calm. The posture is composed. Nothing about the physical appearance signals what actually happened. That gap between appearance and reality is what makes the discovery so difficult to look away from. Number 5. The Roman mass grave of Herculaneum. When Vesuvius erupted in 79 CE, Pompeii absorbed most of the historical attention. The bodies found there became iconic, but the neighboring city of Herculaneum held something different. Along the shoreline of the ancient city, archaeologists discovered vaulted boat chambers, storage rooms that had been used by residents attempting to flee the eruption by sea. Inside these chambers, clustered together in the dark, were hundreds of skeletons. The people of Herculaneum did not die slowly beneath ash. They died in seconds. A superheated surge of gas and volcanic material traveling at extraordinary speed struck the shoreline and killed everyone inside the chamber simultaneously. Forensic analysis of the bones showed signs of extreme thermal shock. Skulls had fractured from internal pressure. Soft tissue had vaporized almost instantly. What makes the discovery haunting is not the manner of death, but the arrangement of the remains. Families died together. Adults had pulled children close. Individuals who had been strangers moments earlier died pressed against one another in the dark. The positions of the skeletons reflect the last decisions people made when they understood there was nowhere left to go. Archaeology usually deals in objects and structures. In Herculaneum, it deals in the final seconds of specific human lives. Number 4, the Neolithic killing field of Schöneck-Kilienstätten. In 2015, archaeologists excavating a site in central Germany uncovered a mass grave dating back approximately 7,000 years. What was inside it went beyond anything expected from early Neolithic settlements. The remains of at least 26 individuals were found in a chaotic deposit. Men, women, and children. Many of the bones showed severe trauma. Skulls had been fractured by blunt force. Legs had been broken in multiple cases after death. Analysis showed that nearly every victim had been struck multiple times. The injuries were not consistent with warfare between armed groups. They were consistent with a massacre. A settlement attacked its population, killed systematically. Further examination revealed that the bones of young women and adolescents were almost entirely absent. This was not accidental. Researchers concluded that survivors may have been taken. What the site represents is a scene of organized, deliberate violence carried out against an entire community 7,000 years ago. This was not an isolated incident either. Similar massacre sites from the same period have been found elsewhere in Central Europe. The evidence suggests that lethal conflict between early farming communities was not unusual. The remains at Schöneck-Kilienstätten simply survived long enough to show it in detail. Number 3, the child sacrifices of Cahokia. At its peak around 1100 CE, Cahokia was the largest city in pre-Columbian North America. Located near present-day St. Louis, it had a population of tens of thousands and featured enormous earthen mounds that still exist today. Beneath one of these mounds, archaeologists uncovered evidence of something that altered understanding of the civilization entirely. Under what is known as Mound 72, researchers found a mass burial containing the remains of hundreds of individuals. Many were young women arranged in organized layers. Evidence pointed clearly to large-scale human sacrifice. One burial within the mound contained a single high-status male laid on a platform of 20,000 shell beads. Surrounding him were the bodies of others, positioned with apparent deliberateness. What made the discovery particularly significant was what it revealed about Cahokia's social structure. The city was not simply a large settlement, it was a hierarchical society where religious authority operated through ritual killing on a significant scale. The people placed in Mound 72 had not died in conflict. They had been killed as part of ceremony. The mound stood in the center of the city for centuries. Thousands of people would have passed it daily without knowing what was directly beneath their feet. Number 2, the Atacama child mummies. In the driest desert on Earth, the conditions are hostile enough to preserve organic material for centuries without any deliberate preparation. Archaeological sites in the Atacama Desert of northern Chile have produced some of the most intact ancient remains ever found. Among them are mummies of children, some buried in groups, preserved so completely that their features remain recognizable. Several of these burials date to the Inca period and show evidence of capacocha rituals similar to those performed at Luglailaco. Others predate the Inca and suggest that ritual sacrifice of children was practiced across multiple distinct cultures in the region over a long period of time. Analysis of the remains has revealed details that are difficult to process clinically. Stomach contents, final meals, physical evidence of sedation, the systematic nature of the preparations. The desert itself added a layer of preservation that no burial practice could have anticipated. Children placed in the ground centuries ago now exist in a state of near perfect physical preservation. Faces, expressions, body position at the moment of death. The Atacama keeps what it receives. Number 1, the handprints in the caves of Cueva de las Manos in a remote canyon in Patagonia on cave walls that were decorated between 13,000 and 9,000 years ago. There are hundreds of handprints. They were made by placing a hand flat against the rock and blowing pigment around it, leaving the outline behind. Red, black, white, and ochre layered over one another across surfaces that stretch for meters in every direction. Like, most of the handprints are left hands, which suggests the right hand was used to hold the blowing instrument. When researchers examined them carefully, patterns emerged that were not immediately comfortable to interpret. A significant number of the hands were missing fingers. At first, injury and accident were considered. Life in the Paleolithic was dangerous, but the distribution of the missing fingers was not random. Certain fingers were absent consistently across multiple hands. The pattern matched what would be expected if fingers had been deliberately removed or folded before the print was made. In several other ancient cultures, finger removal was a documented practice connected to mourning, a physical mark made to record grief, an offering cut from the living body to honor someone no longer present. If that interpretation is correct, these walls are not simply decorated, they are covered in evidence of loss. Each handprint with a missing finger may represent a specific death, a specific person, a specific moment of grief that someone needed to make permanent. The prints have remained on those walls for thousands of years, exactly where they were placed, silent, specific, and completely impossible to ask about. Thank you for watching and sticking till the end. We've got plenty more videos coming in the future. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss them.